Welcome to the Strategy Layer. Today's episode marks the first for this podcast. For the first time ever, an AI bot has an active speaking role in the conversation. You'll hear directly from the digital twin of today's guest, offering perspective alongside the human voice behind it. The guest is Richard Bird, a multi-time CISO, the former Chief Customer Information Officer at Ping Identity, a longtime advisory board member, an author, and one of the most respected strategic voices in cybersecurity. Richard currently serves as the Chief Security Officer at Singulr, where he focuses on enterprise AI governance, delivering real visibility, security, and compliance into how AI is actually being used across organizations. In this episode, Richard's digital twin opens up the show with a blunt assessment of where cybersecurity thinking has fallen behind. From there, we'll explore how AI is accelerating cybercrime, why many organizations are misjudging AI risk, and how governance failures are becoming systemic rather than technical. We'll also step back to take a look at and discuss Richard's recent book, Famous with 12 People, a perspective on impact, leadership, and influence that favors depth over scale. We close with Richard's reflections on legacy, what he hopes to leave behind, and what lies ahead for him beyond the roles, the titles, and even what his digital twin couldn't anticipate him saying. And if you're ready to try using Richard's digital twin, or if you have thoughts about building your own, head over to identiant.com so you could learn more. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get into it. Richard Bird is here, and we're starting this episode a bit differently, Richard. I want to let you know. So I have invited your digital twin into the studio, the version of you that never sleeps, doesn't need coffee, and has instant recall. So if this experiment works like I think it will, I think we could have some fun with this. So let me bring your digital twin to the stage. Hey, Richard Bot, what's the one cybersecurity myth you would roast humans for still believing in 2025?
The myth that strong passwords are still the cornerstone of security. That thinking is prehistoric. Passwords are digital paperweights, cheap, reused, phished, and automated into oblivion. We've spent decades teaching people how to make better passwords, and all we've done is give criminals better material to work with. Identity isn't about what you know anymore. It's about what you are and what's verified. Step up to passkeys, risk-based authentication, and continuous validation. Stop protecting the front door with a lock everyone already has the key to. So here's the real question. Are you still training your users to memorize passwords, or training your org to finally outgrow them?
And there's the $1 million question.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah. That's your twin's take. Human Richard, do you agree with him, or would you roast something else even harder?
No, I would absolutely agree. The reality is that the password and account construct goes back to 1961. That account password structure was historically proven to be faulty when it was hacked within hours or days by grad students so that they could sell each other their compute time. And yet this is still the fundamental basis for access, entry, privilege, grants, all that in our digital world. And a lot of it, actually, I like the tone of Richard Bot. I mean, a lot of it is just laziness, corporate laziness in addressing, architectural changes and stack changes that are necessary to kind of not just modernize. Like let's get rid of the old wooden wheels. And let's do something different. So, yeah, I would absolutely agree. And if there was one thing that I think it might have missed, since it did such a good job of kind of extending that logic of passwords into other things like pass keys and continuous verification, the only thing that I can think of that I might have added to that output would, as a human, Richard, would be, standing privileges. This need to let Betty in accounting hold on to some archaic access for some type of reporting that she may use sometime in the next 7 years. And yet it sits there as a weak spot inside of your organization simply because you don't think that Betty can do without it, even though she hasn't touched it in 15 years. So that persistent trust attitude that is kind of linked to this account and password construct is probably that next extension that I would have thought of. Kind of hashing it, chopping it up with my digital twin.
I appreciate that it's brought in an age-old issue that we definitely still grapple with today. And I wonder, though, to look at it through a slightly modern lens, is given your current modern view or your current perspective, do you think AI is going to change the calculus and force IAM to mature, or simply revealing that it never did?
Well, I would say that there's a chance that it'll change the calculus, because I'm participating in the market, whether it's as an advisor, a friend, or a ride along with tons of young companies that are innovating. What they're doing is they're using AI to go after a series of intractable problems that most companies. My old friend David Lee sent me a video one day of a CISO on a panel who said, the reason why we don't do much with identity is because it's infrastructure, and nobody wants to spend money on infrastructure. That's shocking coming from a senior CISO, right? But that is the attitude that the security field has about identity. And because of that, I think that a lot of stuff has gone unresolved, or cans have been kicked down the road. And when we think about something as inefficient as certification, I think that there are a number of AI companies, AI native companies, that are doing some really interesting takes on, why will it take, monthly cycles or quarterly cycles to go certify somebody's access? Why can't you just go figure it out right now on demand? So I think those things are interesting. Other AI tools that are being used to hunt down standing privileges, others that are being used to hunt down. I saw a report the other day. Companies still have something like a company of 30,000 and above still have something like 8 to 10,000 orphaned accounts. Like, how can we be in this space? And the reason we're in this space is because of underinvestment, lack of focus. Could AI tools make things better in those spaces, dramatically reduce both inherent and residual risk? Yeah, I absolutely think so. But there also has to be an appetite to allow those tools to be used within your organization as a corporate buyer. And there have to be, kind of a series of intellectually honest moments about the stuff that you've refused to address in order for those AI tools to be optimally effective. But there definitely are a bunch being created, and that gets me super excited.
You've in previous conversations, Richard, you've made a striking illustration that when you're having conversations with customers, and if you can't convince them that the world is round, or that dinosaurs existed, that you might as well, it's not worth having a conversation, and you don't want to get into a theological argument, which it seems like it gets to that level frequently on a daily basis, with money and shareholders and capitalism involved. And we both rant about that at times. You've mentioned the infrastructure, right? That you don't invest a lot in infrastructure, in identity, because it's infrastructure. But, and that AI governance is identity governance. I just wonder, is there something more that you think leaders are still getting fundamentally wrong besides the tech piece?
Yeah, I think leaders outside of the identity world have no understanding of the Frankenstein's monster that we've all built within our organizations, right? We've cobbled together identity to keep the enterprise running, to keep it safe. And it came with a number of compromises. The most important compromise, and this is something that's being talked about extensively amongst kind of the known quantities in identity, whether it's Heather Flanagan or Eve Mailer or I'm trying to think who else has been tossing a lot of David Lee as well, who I've mentioned earlier, who are tossing a lot of questions out about this grand compromise that we made that most business and technology leaders don't know about, which is when we got done doing authentication, the bloody battles of centralized and federated authentication and SSO, we either fundamentally gave up or were forced to give up on fine-grained access control. And what we did is we distributed authorization to the wind, meaning DevOps. And DevOps never followed our explicit instructions in identity to associate authorization to the roles profiles and other things that we built in RBAC and other coarse grain layers. They associated it directly to the app. And by associating to the app, anything that's authenticated that then can gain access to that authorization call can use that authorization call for anything that it wants to within that data store, that app store. And why I took a rather lengthy amount of time to go through that particular one and why it is so opaque to leaders is this is the Rube Goldberg device that we built to keep the business running. And this is the Rube Goldberg device that AI loves, because once AI is authenticated, it will use whatever it can get a hold of to accomplish its coded mission. And this means that a good AI agent actually looks like a bad actor once it starts maneuvering the identity componentry. And a lot of that componentry is not fully owned by IAM organizations. So this is the reckoning that'll happen. We're starting to see the edges of it in some headline news. I think in 2026 we're going to see bold headline news around identity-related failures that are capitalized on either by bad or good AI with super negative outcomes. And that'll be the wake-up call that'll start the conversation. But we've been knitting this ball of disaster for 25 or 30 years. It's not a unravel it overnight and make it right. There's going to be some strong implications for foundational security spend, particularly in identity as a result.
I love that. And I'm a little surprised that Richard Bott didn't talk about zero trust. and and because in the testing that I've done, it seems like 3 times out of 4 it talks about zero trust to that answer. And so I think we're getting there, right? Which is this idea that identity is the new control plane becomes even more interesting when we talk about what people are actually doing with AI. And you've kind of lived in multiple careers throughout your tenure, right? As a CISO and as a chief customer officer for the largest identity management company on the planet, and now in your role as a CISO for Singulr and overseeing AI governance, it brings you just back to the forefront of where problems are happening and opportunities are created.
It's really strange that it did. It wasn't intentional on my part. As you and I have talked about a couple of years ago now, it's actually more than I expected. It's four-ish years ago now, I made a decision to depart the identity proper world on the solution side as well as the practitioner side because I wasn't seeing an innovation. I was seeing, the same old conversations about directory-based architectures, and passwordless had been rapidly commoditized, and it didn't really matter because I hope I don't piss anybody off, but half the passwordless companies were, really nothing but window dressing over passwords in the back end. They weren't really, doing, the advanced work that we've now seen materialize in a number of different companies, and I just needed a break. And I went to work in API security. And that was a real interesting stretch for me because while I understood the basics of API programming, I didn't understand kind of the universe of bad things that were associated with, kind of this explosive growth in APIs that had happened pre and post COVID. And then when I say I didn't intentionally mean to end up here, I get involved in AI governance, security, and control. And I don't think it was more than a couple months that I was with Singulr that the conversations that I was having with a number of companies were turning towards, can you associate every single user and their use of AI in my organization? Well, those are entitlements and grants. Those are privileges that are, given to you based upon your identity, the verification, validation of that identity, and all of a sudden, accidentally, all the worlds that I've worked in, kind of separately, all came together. And I'm probably talking more about identity these days relative to AI usage and consumption specifically than I have about any other technology evolution or domain area like API security that I've ever worked in, and it's just growing by the day. All of a sudden, people are recognizing, oh my gosh, we have to control this stuff, and it has led to some weird stuff. Like people are kind of force fitting AI control with identity, and I do think that there's some interesting outcomes of that. Won't name the large identity companies, but they're going out to their customers and saying, "Hey, look, just give it a UID. We're going to put it in the universal directory, and you'll be good to go." And I'm always like, I talk to the leaders of these companies, and I'm like, "Did you bother to tell your customers that their bills are going to explode by 50% on renewal because you guys base your billing upon identities and total volume of subscriptions?" Or total volume of identities that are associated, and you can see this like, no, we haven't told them yet, but to be honest, we haven't figured this all out yet either, and that is the truth. I mean, anybody that says that what we're doing with AI today isn't on the job learning is lying. Because we are continuously finding a host of unexpected and unintended consequences, and a lot of it is just simply because of this tech bro attitude of go fast, break things,
Yeah, yeah,
and in production, right?
yeah.
And it's really taxing a lot of our systems, a lot of our security architectures. It's taxing a lot of our our financial engineering. As developers overuse tokens because there's no monitoring on it, and all of a sudden, instead of a $500 bill, you've got a
5,000.
$50,000 bill.
Yeah, 50.
Right?
Love that your
I mean,
career took a detour, and mine did too. And I got out of identity, 2015, 2016. I ended up at a little company called VeraClouds, and I brought you in there, where I, kind of made the introductions. And it seems to me that we try as we might to get out of the identity space, it always comes back to us. That's been my experience. And, that company was acquired last year. And I think credential security is still a pretty important topic. Um, as much as we would love to get rid of passwords. So there's that aspect to it. And we're going to get to, in previous conversations, I always like to get some career guidance and career advice from you. And you took time to write a book about this, which we're going to get to later in the show. But while we're on this topic of, it had to come up, and I think we're diving deeper into this AI security than in previous guests on this podcast. And to be clear, like it's not an AI or a cybersecurity or an identity podcast. It's about strategy. So we want to keep this at a strategic level, but thinking there could be your peers in the C-suite or business stakeholders listening in. You've been vocal about shadow AI, and this becomes like the new looming threat that's even bigger than standing privileges, because now it goes from you know what you don't know to you don't know what you don't know kind of a thing, and it's not a hypothetical. It's the reality already inside most companies. So, what's the most dangerous unsanctioned AI behavior happening right now that leaders aren't even aware of?
oh well, the most dangerous is certainly the confluence of um, shadow AI and all the lies we told ourselves about having shadow IT under control,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really kind of interesting dynamic in the marketplace. Because
So
when I
it's not
raise
a
that, people,
technology problem. You're hinting at a mindset problem.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, because we there's another. We don't just surrender, big motions and movements in security. We surrender them in technology too. In the IS and the IT departments, and I said something in the media a few weeks ago that got some people wound up a little bit. And I'm like, nobody ever finishes a damn project in technology, whether it's security or it's IT. Nobody ever finishes it. And as a result, we've got this interesting situation where people are like, well, we solved shadow IT years ago. And I'm like, really? Like, can you tell me the security controls that you're currently invoking around SharePoint or Slack or Notion or? And, I'll get back. Well, we use the configurable tools that are inside of those. And I'm like, so we allowed this massive sprawl of collaboration tools, knowing the architectural and functional weaknesses that SharePoint has had for decades. And now we've got shadow AI, and we're absolutely shocked when shadow AI capitalizes on unstructured but accessible data within a SharePoint, within a Notion, within a Slack. And I think that is one of the most risky issues currently, specific to data leakage, data exfiltration. And I think this also, the other thing when I'm talking strategically with leaders about that is completely misunderstood is that Gen AI and agentic have different risk issues, right? Gen AI is predominantly data leakage, data exfiltration, privacy, compliance failures against data accords like GDPR, like CCPA, and that's about it, right? But when you look at agentic has the capability to shut your company down. It is operational risk, business resiliency, business continuity. It is a risk to data on the secondary level, but only because we're not taking care of the security problems in the Gen AI space, because agents reach out to LLMs. When I talk to people about the greatest risk strategically that they're not contemplating, it is this kind of interwoven world of things that are trying to gain access to assets, and they're doing it in spaces where we have done a very, very poor job of putting security controls around them, because we told the security people to go away when we couldn't figure out how to lock down
And
SharePoint.
as careful as or as helpful as LLMs try to be, or chat GPT, the scenario is, oh, hey, I see you have access to Q4 earnings. Would you like me to share that with you now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always laugh. There is one tool that every CIO and every CISO on the planet fears today, and it's Grammarly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this is not an exaggeration. Everybody is terrified of Grammarly, and one of the problems with it is again, from a security controls standpoint, it is very difficult to tell the difference between an enterprise licensed Grammarly, a personal account Grammarly on a corporate device, and a freemium Grammarly on a corporate device. Raising a lot of questions about our cloud security controls, but also raising a lot of energy around this attitude that the browser has become all, and this is where all the security is going to get invoked. So you're seeing a lot of companies that are building this whole kind of browser extension based world. And the problem with that is that now this is very specific tactically, but if you're doing that with an extra token, right, by proxy, you're not writing the user's token. It's pretty functionally useless. You have to be inline and a part of that user's profile in these browsers to be able to invoke the kind of controls necessary to keep those bad things from happening. So that's another gap in knowledge as people are running out and going, well, we're going to do all the security in the browser, which is just nonsense. Because the truth is that in another 12 to 24 months, we will be calling AI exactly what it is, which is technology again. Just like we started calling big data technology and blockchain technology, and it's all technology. It doesn't have a special flavor. And by treating it special during this kind of hype period, we're generating a tremendous number of myths and misperceptions that are easily consumed and digestible by leaders, and that's just not good. I
I
don't know what
love
else to
your
say. That's just not
yeah,
good.
I love your ability to just like take past patterns and apply forward thinking to create more realism and insight. And so, with that realism and insight, Richard, let's take a scenario. If you were sitting on a board tomorrow, what's the one brutally honest question that you would ask the CEO about shadow AI?
Oh, it actually would have nothing to do with AI. My brutally honest question would be: has anybody sat down with you and gone through the top 10 OWASP issues that have been federated to the top 10 most frequent ways that companies are hacked or breached? So take the OWASP stuff, take the Verizon DBIR, IBM cost of a breach, CrowdStrike global threat, jam them all together, pick out the top 10, and have you on the board or the CEO gotten confirmation that all of the security controls necessary to keep you from getting popped by those same 10 that have been in the same order on the same list for the last 20 years? And if the answer is, I don't know, then to reel this back to AI, my response is going to be, it's already bad enough in a non-AI world. In an AI world, that becomes cataclysmic, right? If you can still get popped on SQL injection, which is solvable, if you can still get popped on business email compromise, which is solvable, if you can get popped on authentication misconfigurations, which is solvable, like in a world where AI exists, it is much more lethally efficient than human beings. And it is going to capitalize on all those same weaknesses. It's not going to come up with a new attack vector. It's going to attack you in
Where
the
you're
spaces
already weak.
where you already suck, right? So that would be my question to a board. Has it been proven to you that you don't suck at security? And I know that sounds contentious, and I never mean to throw a stone at a CISO. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, right? I don't mean it that way. What I mean is it is a reflection of the gross underfunding and the gross lack of attention to security, the gross overuse of cyber insurance, and the expectation that we can do this risk and reward balance in a world where the bad guys don't operate on a risk and reward balance. It's just we're totally misaligned as it relates to our enemy. And that misalignment is where they capitalize and do bad things. And they're using AI too, as we just learned from Anthropic the other day.
And
So
they don't sleep. They don't have weekends. Yeah, they have AI. They have innovation. They have marketing budgets and campaigns and more of what organizations have. Right. The thought about hackers and AI is that they have a dominant winning strategy, and they have which is the incentives that maybe give them an advantage when they're trying to hack you and your organization, and that they only need to get lucky one time, and that AI just greatly enhanced their odds of being lucky when they're trying to find that one in into an organization to hack it and to compromise it.
yeah, I always struggle a little bit about the hackers only need to be right once. I actually like something more along the lines of what I believe Thomas Edison said, which is, I have never failed. I've just found 10,000 ways it didn't work. Right? That is a hacker's life, right? That is the bad actor's life. They've got to try 10,000 things that don't work until they hit that one thing that does, right? The problem with that argument about the hacker only needs to be right once is that it discounts the fact that 10,000 things that they came against, they weren't able to get in, right? Now, the 11th tends to be something stupid like exposed credentials and secrets, or the 10,001st that they take advantage of. But what I find interesting about the massive disconnect between the bad actors and the bad guys and the good guys is that the good guys, particularly in North America, are standing up and crying about, I'm eliminating 15,000 jobs because of AI. And the bad actors are going, I can do my job 10 times faster, 15 times more efficiently, 100 times more effectively by using AI as augmentation, as tools. So which one's right? Well, the success rate is going to clearly show which one's right, right? The exponential growth curve that's going to happen in cyber crime losses because bad guys are using AI tools, and we're just getting rid of human beings on the corporate side. Those strategies are going to result in some really problematic issues and challenges in the corporate world. Even more importantly, Chase Cunningham and I have talked about this frequently. Even more importantly, in China, every spare person who has the ability is being trained to use AI in the entire population. And in the United States, we're talking about how we're getting rid of humans using AI. Again, this massive inconsistency, and I won't take any credit for Chase's position on this, but Chase has stated multiple times publicly that this could be the inflection point where who is the global leader changes because we're taking this short-sighted look at what AI is, which is just a tool, but we're giving it more value or more, more credit than that. And then our adversaries, as well as our nation state antagonists, are using it to make people better. And we're going to see, that kind of reckoning or inflection point here soon.
Where consulting comes in, we've both been in the consulting world with Optiv and other arrangements. And so I wonder how consulting is faring in this world of AI. You've said that data provenance, verified intelligence isn't a compliance checkbox, and it's the backbone of trust. So thinking about how AI operated before AI and how consulting is operating now, I wonder, like, is this the end of PowerPoint consulting? And what are your observations about how AI is enabling or taking away from the role of consulting inside of organizations?
Well, I think it's important to immediately state. I believe I will be dead, gone, and cold in the grave for about 20 years before PowerPoint physically goes away, Excel physically goes away, and I'm super stoked that Clippy has all of a sudden been resurrected and has been used frequently as a symbol for AI. But when you look at the mechanics of consulting, and I'm old Big Four, I've had that experience in my life as well. When you look at the mechanics of consulting, there's definitely going to be a forced change that happens in the consulting world. The focus will need to go much broader in strategy, and it will need to be much deeper in skills and talents where AI can't do kind of a single-threaded, single point analysis. Provide all kinds of recommendations around it. There's an interesting. There's definitely going to be a massive labor redistribution shift in the consulting world, but I keep saying this over and over again. Every technology evolution has resulted in a change, not in the number of people working, because actually, mathematically and historically backed by data, every technology evolution that has ever happened has actually put more people to work in technology. So AI would have to be something completely unique in the history of human beings and technology in order for all these gloom and doom things to come about. But labor will definitely be redistributed. This reality of labor redistribution, always kind of, I use the example of, name me the last time you talked to a tape room operator, right? Tape room operators don't exist anymore. But since the retiring of tape room operators as a function, technology worker numbers didn't go down; they grew exponentially, right? And I do think that the same thing will happen in the AI space. When we look at the consulting area, I think the consulting will change because one thing that AI is not good at, and mathematically, I've seen a number of studies that suggest that it will never be good at, is kind of complex. Network is the wrong word, but complex network level solutioning, right? Would you trust an AI to give you a strategy today? It will give you something, right? But is that answer in isolation outside of all of the other kind of components that are necessary to be added into the equation, geopolitical risk and global financial risk and all these things. And as those types of scenarios become more and more complicated, AI becomes less and less valuable. So I think that in consulting, you're going to have resources that have the broad picture capabilities as opposed to the isolated singular skill capabilities. And hopefully we'll use AI to augment those singular skill resources so that they can, become Swiss Army knives, which I think would be great. But early days, a lot of economic decisions are being made that don't seem to really have any ties to people being augmented and made better with AI, but being replaced by it. And I know that noise will tamp down too, because AI would have to buck the trend of never being a disappointment in terms of all of the predictions that have been made about it. And there has been no technology evolution in the history of man that has ever achieved that level. So once we've sorted through what's the old Gartner saying, the trough of disappointment or disillusionment,
Yeah.
yeah, and begin to make that lift up into where it makes sense from an applicable use cases standpoint, how it would work in a consulting environment, so on and so forth, until we kind of get to that area of rational application. We won't really understand the full power of AI.
I recently wrote about this problem of Gen AI and LLMs, where you can ask it a question like about strategy, and it sounds plausible and it sounds great, but it's not authoritative or definitive and missing obviously context. This is called the stochasticity problem, where you can ask the same question 4 different times in 4 different sessions and get a different answer. And
Yeah.
we're working now. We had Richard Bott. We're bringing in not just skills, but entire domains of verified intelligence to help with this problem. I think you're right to point out it's still missing some global context, which would need to be provided in the form of like corporate strategy or news and current global events type of a thing. So there's external expertise and internal expertise that we need to factor in. I wonder, does when you think about this, does AI finally separate real talent from theater? Right. And like, I think we're just starting to scratch on this. There are a lot of consultants that come in and deliver AI transformation without transformation, and you're still footing the bill.
Well, there's a lot of argument to be made that what we're experiencing with the boom in AI is technology finally delivering on a 50-year-old promise, right? Which is like, I'll take, with a grain of salt, predictions like, Elon had about, everyone will be able to just sit at home and won't even have to work anymore. And like, whatever. Right. but those types of utopian promises and expectations have been made by every iteration of technological evolution. So now we're finally getting to a place where AI creates the possibility for technology to be levered or leveraged to actually solve really interesting problems, and people are acting like it's the rise of a brand new species. I'm like, no, this is what we've made for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden we're delivering on a promise and now it's amazing. I'm like, and we've seen all of these grand promises happen every single cycle. Like I always like to go back to, people are always like, well, let's go back to cloud and CASB. I'm like, no, that's boring. Let's go back to big data. Like big data was the promise of all of these amazing things that we were going to be able to do, because now we've built up these massive stores of data, and all you needed to do was go out there and mine it, and you were going to find all kinds of interesting things. And that kind of sucked, right? Like it became too expensive. It became difficult. You didn't have the talent and the resources to do it. Actually, AI augmentation of big data type stuff now is super interesting because those tools can manage a lot more of that in a more effective way. But I just am not, hyped about us, delivering on a promise when last I checked, we were supposed to all be, going to work and flying cars by now. right? The technology world makes these grand promises and then delivers a certain percentile of them, usually in single digits, and then acts like it did something. And I'm not a huge fan of folks like Peter Thiel from a from a life perspective standpoint, but I believe it was Peter who said something along the lines of, "We haven't done any really innovative things in decades. We keep doing iterative things." And whether the AI hypesters want to buy it or not, the truth is that AI is iterative. It is not innovative. It is not, something so totally unique that manifested out of nowhere. It's the next iteration of what we've been doing with machine learning for years and years and years. And all of a sudden you slap a not even a pretty UX on it, and people are flipping out about how amazing it is. So again, all of this is in that hype cycle. We're all seeing the fringes of that of reality starting to creep in, that trough of disillusionment kind of getting ready to bind. We've seen it in the way that the markets responded the last few weeks. So we will see this stuff get roped back into a level of rational application, but we probably still need to go through another year of nonsense and sideshow, carnival, PT Barnum.
Yep. Well, Richard, let's bring let's have some fun. In the next few minutes, I'm just going to, or in the next minute, I don't know how you're doing for time. I did have a roast session here that your digital twin could roast you. I don't think we'll have a chance to go through them all, although that could be really fun. I just picked out one question here. And if you have the courage to hear some feedback from Richard Bot,
Absolutely.
Game, let's rip. So the question I have for Richard Bott was, what's one thing the human Richard needs to hear but never says out loud?
You don't need to carry every problem like it's yours to fix. That relentless sense of ownership, the drive that built your credibility, is also what burns you out and blinds you to scale. Leadership isn't doing more, it's enabling others to do it better. So here's the hard truth. Delegation isn't weakness, it's legacy. What's one responsibility you're gripping so tightly it's choking progress?
I love that. Some truth.
Yeah, I love it too, and I am interested. Is that Richard Bot or is that my wife? Because I've definitely heard that before, and it is a fair criticism, and I fully accept it. But it is good to hear it outside of my inside voice in my head. So
I think the as I've been building these and playing with them, that are we oftentimes know the truth and know the right thing to do, but translating that into execution is difficult.
Yeah. I have a friend here visiting for the holidays, and she wrote a book called "I Know What to Do, but I Don't Do It." And it's
No way.
exactly
That's exactly what I was just saying.
yeah.
What's the book? What's the author's name? I'll have to put that in the show notes.
Sue Markovich is her name.
Interesting.
And
you might need to have a conversation with Sue about digital twins and doing the right thing.
Just a fascinating reality of kind of the human existence and the human condition, right? We know what we're supposed to do, and we rarely build up enough energy, motivation, or discipline to get it done.
Richard, I want to just, as we wrap up here in the last few minutes, you've written this amazing book that was humble on the surface, but as you dig into it, it really shares the truth about how maybe unfortunately we're in a world where performance matters, right? That people unfortunately kind of succumb to not the truth, but the perception that, this idea that perception is reality, and how you have to translate your expertise into something that others can understand, right? And so, as you think about, this book is called Famous with 12 People, a career guide on how to be an internationally recognized expert in something that nobody cares about. So I love the story about, explaining to your dad and your family about what this means. Now that it's been about a year since you've written the book, what have been your reflections? Like, what kind of reaction have you got? What have been your reflections about the importance of this work?
Well, The feedback that I've gotten has just been universally appreciative. People that have grabbed the book, and it's interesting the diversity of people that have read it that have come up to me and had a conversation. People that want to find a way into having a bigger voice or a broader voice within their particular area of focus, or people that have been recognized experts for a long time, but they don't know the mysteries of media, or they don't know the mysteries of how do I get my abstracts picked up, or there's just so many kind of different variations. And then the public speaking part that I wrote had a much bigger effect than I thought it would with people, because what I found is there's an entire industry where people are trying to help people be better public speakers. And I don't mean to throw stones at that industry, but a lot of it is really like unrealistic. It's like, go to a bunch of Toastmasters meeting. I love Toastmasters, but if your course to learning how to be a better speaker is going to take you 2 to 3 years, that's a lot of time investment, when there are just a couple of good tricks and tips that can help you be much more effective as a speaker within the reading of 5 or 10 pages. So it has been a real joy to have gotten that book out of my head and have people tell me that it's been valuable to them. I intentionally wrote a book that wasn't in cybersecurity because I felt that what I had learned was much broader than security, and that it could help people. And as a result, I also became exposed to this world of micro famousness, people that have thousands of followers and all kinds of things, from quilting to, math problems to, you just meet all of these really fascinating people that are very specialized in something that people are super passionate about, and they get to be leaders in those communities. And I think that there's much more room in the security disciplines for many more voices like that. So if I could bring that around to, what I'm passionate about, I would hope that we build more of those voices in security that are willing to take on the status quo, that are willing to openly debate in a respectful way, so that we're not all sitting around nodding our heads in shared misery because nothing is changing and stuff's not improving. And so that's my hope with what I've written, and I hope that it inspires people.
Well, I for one, I'm glad you wrote it, and I haven't purchased a print copy, but what I was gifted with was the ability to talk to your book through Richard Bott, the experiment we've been having here. And I relayed to you in our Slack channel that I asked your Richard Bott the question of, like, what are the, I asked, what are the keys to a successful career after 50? And your Richard Bott came with such concise and thoughtful answers. It talks about drop the retirement mindset. Reinvention is the new retirement. At 50, your edge isn't your age. It's your clarity. You've seen what works, what doesn't, who's full of it. Use that. Focus on 3 things. And I won't read the full answer, but it's giving me and others the ability to act as though we're having real live mentorship or guidance from an expert based upon the content from your book. So although I would love to spend the time and probably read your entire book from cover to cover, there are times when I need answers, like right now when I'm going
Yeah.
through a crisis of career, right? And those career pivots, which we talked about earlier in this episode. So I'm excited, A, that you wrote the book, and B, that I have access to it, and C, that we're going to be able to unlock so much value for others who not only need help with their careers and the need to communicate better and becoming slightly famous, but how that will translate into impact in their role and in their job and in their life.
Yeah, for sure. And I would add, it's interesting what came out of Richard Bott around that over 50, because one of the things that I wrote about was actually, and I know I've mentioned a lot of names. I always say this when I'm on a pod or a webinar. I mention names because the names that I mention are people that are worth you looking at, the audience members,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't mention them to name drop. I mention them because these are brilliant thinkers, great human beings, that are worth your time if you've never heard of them before. And in this particular instance, I'll mention Andy Hindle. And Andy, I bumped into Andy at EIC when it was in Munich, if I remember correctly, and walked up, hadn't seen each other in a while, started talking. I said, well, I'm writing this book. And I said, I'm really struggling a little bit. And he said, why? I said, well, professionally, I said, I just kind of woke up one morning and asked myself, what if everything that I know about identity is wrong? And that's that reinvention piece, right? It was, and it really was a kind of a huge watershed moment for me. And it happened about 4 years ago. So I was about 55. And I was like, what if all the stuff that I talk about, all the stuff that I kind of put out there as this is, this is a truth, not all the truth, but these things are important. What if everything I've been saying is wrong? And that led to an entire different line of thinking and study and focus. And I think it's really, really hard for people as we age and we gain experience to believe that sometimes even that experience we've had can skew our own perceptions and our own beliefs while we're fully convinced in the value of them. So that those lessons I've tried to incorporate in that book, and like I said, it's been a ton of fun. And now I've learned that writing a book is like potato chips because there might be
Totally.
because there might be
Absolutely.
more coming.
Yeah,
So
there should be. Like I published one too, and I'm just getting started. By the way, the CISO on the Razor's Edge was self-published in June, and now Singris and I are going to work on IAM leadership on the Razor's Edge. Look for
that's fantastic.
May or June timeframe, and my next book will be published by Singris.
Love it. That's
So
awesome, man.
wrapping up, thank you. I loved hearing your answer, which had more warmth and the experience of hearing your answer. I don't think Richard Bott has anything on you, right? I always prefer to hear from you, but when you're not around, which I hope it doesn't take another 1 or 2 years for us to get live on a podcast and compare notes. But if that happens, I will have Richard Bott and. So in closing, Richard, as you zoom out across your entire career, Airborne, Wall Street, startups, global stages, what's the thread you hope becomes your legacy?
I really hope it's just as simple as I was able to be a help to somebody. Now, that's a bit of stack in the deck because I know for certain there have been many somebodies that I've helped. But that's, your legacy is the extension of that good thing into broader and deeper fields, right? And if I can continue to be of value to people in accomplishing what they want to get done, where they want to go, that's a pretty fulfilling life, and it's just as simple as that. I don't have any big grand visions for myself beyond let me help who I can.
Well, I love the simplicity of it. And if things get too complicated, I think our brains tend to resist them. Richard, what's next for Richard Bird that even your digital twin can't predict?
Well, I mentioned writing a book, and in this particular case, the book is flowing. It is a cybersecurity book, and the reason why Richard Bott wouldn't have predicted it is because I have sworn for years that I would never write a cybersecurity book. But it is a cybersecurity book that is going to question how we've approached the practice of security since the very beginnings, since it first manifested. So that would be surprise number one, and I'm hoping to get that done within the next 5 to 6 months. And then surprise number two, I'm unexpectedly planning on being a global citizen. So my wife and I are looking strongly and aggressively at places outside of the United States that we would like to live part of the year. And some of that is quality of life, but some of it is also that questioning everything could I put myself in a situation and circumstance where everything around me is older than anything in the United States, predating the colonies, and those are the types of experiences that we're looking for. And I would have never really had been thinking. I would have never thought about those kind of possibilities until as recently as about a year ago. So that's definitely something that is in my future.
Well, let's stay connected on the book and also on your explorations around the globe. You're right. I would have not predicted that, and I don't think Richard Bott could have either. at least given the current context. Richard, this was a blast, and you're looking as good as I've ever seen you. You're looking wiser, as wise as I've ever seen you. This conversation delivered, insightful, honest, futuristic, and fun. So thanks for joining me on the Strategy Layer Live.
Thank you. Had a blast.